This is the very first program, Nurturing Big Ideas Today videos, where Yvonne, DiVita, myself, is going to interview any number of content experts and those who are out there getting it done. And you'll see most of them are going to be women. Today, my special guest is Toby Bloomberg. Toby Bloomberg and I go back to 100 years ago. Let's not say that, Toby. I was thinking earlier this morning how we're still standing. It's the early 2000s. You're doing diva marketing and I'm doing lipsticking.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you remember that?
I sure do. I sure do. And I remember when you reached out to me when I launched that blog, I was like over the moon. I thought, here's this amazing author talking to me.
It's so funny because those were the early days that so many of us said, hey, this is not just good for business, it's also fun, because it really engaged people. It continues to engage people. That's why we're doing this today. We're going to talk today about Toby's post-layoff venture, which she calls Diva Foodies. And she's going to tell us about her food TV tweet chat. And we may have to explain that a little. I mean, back at the BlogPaws days for the pet community, we did tweet chats, but I don't know how many people do them. They're very popular. We'll talk some more about that. You know, I like what you sent me, Toby. Let me just read this. You said you take her into the culinary world where she had the opportunity to work with people who bring the passion of the arts to their work. The arts. So I want to talk about that, and I want to also talk about the word intentional. So maybe we should start with the word intentional, because that seems to be something that really got you moving forward. Tell us about that.
It's funny to me and quite amazing that one little word, in this case intentional, can really set you on a direction. And for me, quite literally, it changed my life. That sounds like such a big thing, changed my life, but it really did. Like blogging changed my life. I met so many wonderful people and did so many things that I wouldn't have any other way. So when I was laid off from my last corporate gig,
Which you loved, correct?
I loved it. I loved it. I was head of social media for a large national media company, and I was working with reporters and journalists, senior staff. The properties that were in their portfolio, there were almost 100 radio, newspaper, and television stations literally all over the country, and it was so much fun. And it seemed to me at that point that all of my experience had come together and made sense. You know, you have disparate parts here and there, and nothing seems to fit. This seemed to fit everything. But as things would go, they didn't know what to do with us, and they killed the department, and on a snowy day, I was let go.
Oh, well, you know, that's where we then become, I think, intentional about what we need to do to move forward. And that's what happened with you, isn't it?
That's what happened. So I was talking to a friend, and, you know, when things like that happen, you tend to reach out to people that you ordinarily wouldn't, or that you hadn't talked to in a long time, but trust them and ask them for their advice and just do some more networking. And this one friend of mine said, so no matter what you do, be intentional. And Yvonne, one of the things that I found interesting, no one had ever said that word to me in a business setting, intentional. They would say, make a business plan, have goals, objectives, put together a mission statement, make sure you have a plan. He didn't say that. He said, be intentional about what you're doing. And I thought, I've never been intentional about anything. It just sort of flowed. And yeah, I might have had a business plan and some objectives, but it wasn't intentional. So as my story goes this time, I was sitting home during that snowy week in Atlanta, because 2 inches of snow in the city closes. And I was watching food TV shows, and I was doing some cooking and watching some old movies. And I thought, could I be intentional about trying to build a business around food, not as a cook or a chef, but as a marketer to help with digital marketing for these people? Because the more I delved into it, the more I saw that the smaller businesses didn't have that in place. And I thought, maybe I could do that. So I became intentional about that. I launched a sister company to Bloomberg Marketing, which I call Diva Foodies, which sort of picked up on the brand of Diva Marketing, and set off to have another adventure. And that's
it's wonderful. It's wonderful. I really feel that the word intentional fits there, because we talked a little bit about it when you first got started, and food is, it's one of those things that when you learn about going into business, back in my Mary Kay days, you want to be dealing with products that are renewable. So you want to help people buy products or serve people that need products or training or whatever on things that happen on a regular overturning basis, as opposed to a one-off. Here, I make this product, it's done, people buy it. But with food, there's like a million things you can talk about. There must be at this point many, many chefs. You had children on a few months ago. That was really, really awesome. I felt like I was watching a TV show. So, you know, intentional really works. I hope other people watching this, women who are looking to take that next step perhaps in their world of, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm retired, but I want to do something, or hey, I was a stay-at-home mom, kids are gone, what do I do now? I can do photography, I can do baking, I can do knitting, I can do quilting. Well, do it, but be intentional about it. We can talk more about that in another show, because it really is a big concept for people to get a handle on. I want to talk about Diva Foodies and how you say Diva Foodie serves the culinary industry, including food entrepreneurs. Whoever thought there would be something like that? Food entrepreneurs. Awesome. Chefs and cookbook authors, by growing businesses through digital and social media initiatives, along with positioning and branding. So all major things needed in the food industry. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And so when I launched this Diva Foodies, I thought, well, I'll go off and I'll look at the restaurants, because when you think of food, you think of restaurants. You think of big chefs. Well, here in Atlanta, those opportunities are pretty much tied up with advertising and public relations agencies. And I knew it was going to be really hard to make any inroads into the restaurant scene, because as in most businesses, but even more so I think in this business, it's all about relationships.
Sure.
And they had the relationships, and I did not. And I'd talk to people, and they would say, oh, do you know this chef? Do you know that restaurant? And I would say no. And so it sort of set me way far below ground zero. So I took another approach. And what I did was I started to look at the less known chefs, not the Gordon Ramsays of the world, but the chefs that were doing some interesting work, but perhaps were not as well known. And then I started to look at the foodpreneurs, that I call them, or food makers. You know, there are tech makers. Well, in the food world, there are food makers. And these people, Yvonne, resonated with me for several reasons. And one of the reasons is they're basically small businesses. I know all about that. And so I've been working with small businesses my whole life. I grew up in a small business. So there was this affinity. Plus the fact that they were so passionate about what they did. Now, you're passionate about what you do, and we have friends in the tech world and all sorts of different industries. But somehow in the food world, it just seems different for me, or to me, that the chefs step out and they present themselves and they present their work. And if you taste a dish and you don't like it, it's almost like going to a theater and seeing a performance or looking at somebody's piece of art. It's so personal to them. And if you taste a jam that somebody makes and you don't like it or you love it, it's so personal to them. And so that's why I began to go down that path instead. And I thought in a prior life, I was a theater major. And one of the things that I missed in business was the passion and the creativity of the arts. Well, the food world brings that. They bring passion, they bring creativity.
Well,
Yeah.
we have food everywhere. So I'm thinking as you say this, and I'm thinking of the presentation that chefs do when they, I watch a lot of the food shows on TV and whatnot, and the presentation is so important. And it isn't art, but I hear in your voice, and I'm sitting here saying, that is so true when it comes to food, because wherever we go, there's food. There would be food at a theater presentation. You would have food. Well, the food's going to be as important as the show, because the food, then we taste it, we love it, we go away with an experience that we had a great time. If the food is bad,
Yeah.
you go away and you're like, it was okay. Food really does play, and that's why it was so exciting that you were going into this particular industry. And so, here at Big Ideas, Nurturing Big Ideas, we're all about a concept called believe it, build it, become it. And so that's kind of my way of saying be intentional. It's an important thing, I think. New businesses or startups, or if you're changing from one kind of thing to another, as you did, as I've done in the past, you have to believe in what it is. You have to believe that you can build it. And then the become it part is where people sometimes stumble because they don't know what that means. And I'm not saying become a piece of food, for instance. I'm saying become the passionate business person and take it where you want it to go. Does that make sense to you?
Totally. And I really like what you said when you said believe it, because sometimes we have an idea, but we don't really believe in it. And so we go down that path, and after a while we give it up, and we realize that we didn't believe in it. And it, as we well know, and I'm sure most of your listeners or your viewers quite understand, it doesn't happen overnight.
No,
It
it
takes,
shouldn't.
well, I don't know. I'd love this to happen overnight. I'm not opposed to that. But it doesn't. And the expectations shouldn't be set that you find something, you go off and do it, and all of a sudden you're an overnight success. As somebody once told me, you're an overnight success 10 months, 10 years after you began it. And
Yes.
Everybody says, oh, she was like you in BlogPaws. Oh, you were an overnight success, weren't you? You just started it and it happened. Not so much.
Yeah, well, BlogPaws was very unique because it was almost an overnight success, except for the fact that people don't understand that it was based in the belief that blogging was important, and that pet bloggers in particular were important. So, like you said, Toby, I had the background and the experience in business blogging. The pet bloggers did not. And so with Caroline Gowan, my daughter Chloe, and with Tom says hi, we put something together that we were confident of. Toby, we believed in it 110%, and it went to where it needed to go. And then when I retired, that's when I said, well, I can still do this. I just need to do it with the original group of people that I loved, and those are the women who want to build businesses. And that's when, that's why, rather, that the wonderful thing that you're doing is so inspirational and helps me help my clients and prospects and whatnot understand what intention means, what passion means, what believe in it means. And it leads me to a question about inspiration. Now, we hear daily inspirational quotes all the time. I share them, you share them, everybody shares them. They're wonderful. But where do you actually get your inspiration from? I'm sure it's more than just a daily quote online.
It's a big, big question. It's actually a scary question. I was thinking about that when you sent it to me. So I get it from people. I get it from you. I get it from the other women. I had a very special friend who died recently, a four-legged friend, my little puppy Max. I got it from Max. So I get it from walking on the beach. Lots and lots of places. When I don't have that inspiration and I need it to go forward, what I do is I work virtually. So in the back you see cookbooks, because I thought that would be a fun place to do this video. But I get out of my home, I find a little coffee shop, and I take a notebook and a pen. And I don't take technology with me. Well, I do have my iPhone with me. I have my iPhone with me all the time. But but I write, and I write stream of thought. And one thing leads to another. And eventually, I mean, it could take a couple of days, it could take minutes. Eventually, something will come that's an inspiration to go to the next step.
Yeah, I find myself sometimes getting more inspiration than I know what to do with. I'm still trying to figure out how to capture it so I can put it somewhere and return to it and have it re-inspire me, because that can happen also. And so, Toby, as we wind down here, excuse me.
Oh my, are you okay?
Yeah, I just have that. I should have brought a glass of water. I do have.
Here, have my coffee.
BlogPaws.
That's cool. This is my mug, and my mug says, you can't read it here, but it says create.
So, and you see behind me, I have my She Thought She Couldn't, So She Did sign, which is so very, very important and inspirational for me. But as we wind down here, this has been inspirational. And I think my intention with this show is to showcase not just the wonderful women and people I know who are out there getting it done. I mean, we all stumble, but we get back up. But it's also to help other women understand that the way forward is that one step at a time, and things really don't happen. I mean, Toby, if they happened overnight and they came down on your head, you'd be overwhelmed. And what would you do? I mean, that almost happened to BlogPaws because it happened so quickly. But because we had backgrounds in the things that we knew how to do, it was okay. But I want people to know that you are the current president of the Atlanta Food and Lifestyle Bloggers Society. How awesome is that? And you're the social media editor of Travel Girl. What else do you want the audience to know, and where would you like them to contact you if they want to get in touch?
I would like them to know that I want to work with in the food biz. I want to work with foodpreneurs. I think I can help them get onto the next step. So many of them don't understand digital, and so easy to do if you know the background. I think it's very critical in our life today. I want them to know that it's okay to take that step into social media. It builds relationships. You talked about the tweet chat that we did, but real quickly, we interviewed 40 television chefs, 40 chefs that have been on Food TV through all different networks. And I met every single one of those people on Twitter. So it can work. I'd love to do more work with Food TV. I just want to dive into this world and help as many people as I can, have some fun, have some delicious food.
Yeah. And really what I hear and what I see and what I know of you, you have that ability to help them with that branding and that positioning. And I want people to understand that, because everything you do online is building your brand. You need to do it well. And if you're just getting started, you should probably talk to Toby, because she can help you jumpstart from here to there instead of struggling the way a lot of new people do. Where can we get in touch with you, Toby?
Check out divafoodies.com. Explore the site. We've got some great interviews with some chefs and some foodpreneurs. We're on Twitter at Diva Foodies. And you can contact me directly, Toby at Bloomberg, marketing. That's BLOOMBERG.com. And happy to chat anytime.
Excellent. We will have all of that in the transcript of this, so you will be able to see it. You'll be able to go to her site. We'll have some links in there. But Toby, thank you so much. Thank you for being my first interview at the launch of Nurturing Big Ideas today.
Yvonne, it's been a true honor, and I know that this is going to take off like firecrackers.
Thank you.